Three, two, one. Hey Reagan, did you hear that Kevin Feige announced the this like new Marvel movie that's gonna be coming out? It has to do with a hero that is like not really well known. Like they want to have like a Guardians approach where it's like take this relatively unknown character and bring him into the limelight. Yeah, dude, his name's Gargalon.
Gargalon?
Yeah, dude, Gargalon, he's nuts.
Nice. Nice. Good one, Josh.
Oh, Jesus. Anyways, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Coworkers podcast. I am your host, Joshua.
And I'm Regan.
I used my full first name. I don't know what came over me. Today has
Joshua.
been a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my God-given name.
I
Don't
bet.
ever call me that on the streets.
On the streets?
On the streets. Or like if you see me on the streets, you know? That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I feel that.
All right. So, on today's agenda, we have a discussion on 3 movies. But before we do that, Reagan, is there anything that you watched this week that maybe I haven't watched that isn't a part of this discussion?
You know, surprisingly, it's been a pretty light.
It's been a dry week for this guy. This guy who comes into the podcast with like 20 movies to talk about.
I don't know. I've just been tired. So
yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, besides the 3 that we're gonna talk about, I saw Blood Simple from the Coen brothers. I think it's like one of their earlier feature films.
I've never heard of it. Interesting.
It's really interesting. It's an interesting film. It's like this like mystery, like thriller almost. Not as like funny, I guess, as Fargo, but it's still very interesting. Frances McDormand's in it.
Of course.
And then I saw the newest Netflix movie, a new Western.
That's Idris Elba in it, right?
Yeah, the Harder They Fall. And I fuck with it. It's pretty good.
Nice,
it's pretty good.
Nice.
I don't know. Is there anything I can say about it? I mean, the cast is stellar, I think.
Who else is in it other than Idris Elba?
Jonathan Majors, Zazie Beetz.
Okay. I like it.
Regina King.
Nice.
It's a pretty good cast, man. And it's very much a Western. Not like a modern Western, but like a true to form like Western from like
All right. So then there's been a handful of ensemble cast Western movies, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, or like Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven. So, but do those compete with the Adam Sandler masterpiece?
Uh-oh.
I think it's called The Ridiculous Six.
No, bro, that's fucking goated, bro.
That's
Ridiculous
goated?
Six,
All right.
goated.
Fuck you, Tarantino. That's what I'm saying.
No, but The Harder They Fall is cool. And I think
right.
the director is very inspired by Tarantino.
Okay.
Because there's some
but not Adam Sandler?
I guess not.
Fuck.
But there's a lot of like Tarantino-isms.
I see. I got it.
And I think it's pretty interesting.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah, I liked
Nice.
it. And then I saw a pseudo biopic, almost, Spencer. A film from about Princess Diana, starring Kristen Stewart.
Yeah. I remember seeing the trailers for it. It looked good.
I think, just above all else, Kristen Stewart is fantastic as Princess Diana. Fantastic.
Nice. That's great to hear.
She did a great fucking job, dude.
You know what's the cool thing about like I've said this before about like smaller, lesser known actors, actresses getting their big break through like a franchise movie and then getting the opportunity to really flex their muscles in like other movies because now they're given the opportunity to do that. So to go along with Kristen Stewart, it's like there's the obvious example of like Robert Pattinson, you know?
Right.
It's like I just think it's really cool that these actors, actresses, they could now have the opportunity to explore and they get really commended for like the work that they put in.
I just think it's great because like now people are really recognizing like Kristen Stewart and like Robert Pattinson for like how much of a great actor they both are. And not just being bogged down by like, oh, they're the Twilight people.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like that was the problem when like Robert Pattinson was casted as Batman and the only movie people know him from is like Twilight.
Yeah.
When he was announced to be Batman, hot off the heels of The Lighthouse, and it's like you guys need to watch more movies or something.
Fucking The Lighthouse, good time, bro. Come on.
That's what I'm saying.
I need to see more films with the Kristen Stewart in it.
Yeah, me too. I know there's a movie she was in a few years ago. I think it's called Personal Shopper or something like that. Yeah, I heard that was pretty good.
Yeah, I heard she's good in that one Fincher film with Jodie Foster. I forgot what it's called. But she was still pretty young.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, those are the only films I've seen. Pretty short week, cause
I feel it.
What about you, Josh? What do you see?
I can't really say. I don't think I watched anything other than the 3 movies we're going to discuss. I've been rewatching television shows.
Ooh.
Like, I just finished my rewatch of Breaking Bad last night.
Oh, nice.
And I'd still probably say it's my favorite TV show. It's so goddamn good.
Yeah.
Like, all the memes that come from it, and there's like a meme going around of Walter White, like, you know, the bald guy, the main character.
Yeah.
I don't think you've seen it, Reagan, so...
No, but I mean, I know of it.
Okay, so there's like a meme of him where he like... the camera like zooms in really fast on him and he like falls on the floor and he looks like really distraught. Yeah, it's funny that that scene is used so much in like ridiculous shit posting and stuff like that, because it comes from arguably like the best episode of the series, directed by Rian Johnson. It's the 3rd to last episode. It's an amazing part of like the show, but taken out of context, people just repurpose it for so many things.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, man, that show is so goddamn good. And I watched it originally back before like I got really into like the nitty-gritty of like understanding filmmaking and stuff like that. But to essentially watch through the series in like a new lens, like I have more appreciation for it, and it's really fucking stellar.
Nice.
Like not much has changed. If anything, I like it even more.
Yeah.
And the other thing I watched was this new Netflix show, and this had its premiere last week. It is the new League of Legends animated series.
I've heard
called
of this one.
Arcane.
Yeah, I've heard of this one.
And granted, I have like 900 hours in this game, like over the span of like 9 years.
Yeah.
And I have like Stockholm syndrome with it. So I remember hearing about this and being like, oh, okay, like if anything about League of Legends, what I found interesting is like the greater world that Riot Games has crafted for this property. And I wanted to see what they could possibly do, tackling specifically like a handful of characters that come from the game. And what worried me the most was, if I had never played the game, how much enjoyment am I going to get out of this show?
Right.
You know, because the game is pretty fucking dense. There's so many goddamn characters, but there's a smart decision to focus on like a few recognizable faces, really make 2 existing characters the main characters, and focus on their struggles. And if you don't play the game, you have no inkling of knowledge. I think the show does a great job putting you into the world and making the 2 main characters just really fun to watch, because they're sisters.
Right.
And you watch like the dynamic between them evolve as they age and stuff like that. And last week they released the first 3 episodes. There's 9 episodes total, and they are releasing them in chunks of 3 as acts.
Oh, nice.
And this first act was pretty spectacular, especially episode 3. I was kind of taken aback with like how dark it got, and like how really they wanted to like hammer home this like how things are like falling apart essentially, like without getting too much into spoilers. I think it was really good, and I'm surprised at how good it is. I'm a big fan of the art style, like the animation style they decided to go with for this program. The budget is like, seems to be really fucking high, and the art style is really good, the cinematography is really good, the voice acting is stellar. And I think you'd get a kick out of the fact that the older sister in the show, her name's Vi, she's voiced by Haley Steinfeld.
Oh,
and she does a great job.
Okay.
And so they kind of go through the lives of these 2 characters, from like children to like, what I'm guessing the show's gonna end with is like when they're adults, because they're adults in the game, so they're gonna cover like all that backstory. But the younger sister's played by a child actress. I don't remember what her name is, but she was doing a really good job in like the first few episodes, and then a moment happens in episode 3 where she had to really sell an emotion, and I was like I felt it like in my core. Like there's like a sequence that happens that involves a lot of yelling, and the writers did a good job making you empathize with them over the span of like 3 episodes, and I was like, damn, like this is really fucking good. I'm shocked. So if anybody's listening and they haven't checked out this show, the episode like acts come out every Friday up until the 19th, November 19th, that's when like the full series is going to be out on Netflix. They're each an hour long episode, and I highly recommend just like checking it out.
Nice.
I think it's really good.
Well, I mean, all this talk of like TV that you're talking about, it made me kind of realize like I started watching the XFiles.
Oh. The truth is out there.
Yeah, the truth is out there. I want to believe, but my mom was like, she's a big fan of the XFiles.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, and I remember when I was a kid, like she would be like binging it, like she had all the DVDs, even the movies. She had all the DVDs, and she would just binge it, like in her room. Mm-hmm. And like I would watch a couple here and there, but I was a little kid, and I thought it was a little scary.
Yeah, it can be scary.
Yeah, very much so. And right now I'm on season 1. But rewatching like the series, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember some of like the imagery, the creepy imagery and stuff. Yeah, and right now I'm on season 1. It's really interesting. I actually really enjoy it. The whole, I mean, obviously like Mulder and Scully, like they make the series.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, their relationship and whatnot. But yeah, it makes me think of a memory. When my mom was rewatching it again, because she had stopped after like season 2 or 3, like before I was born, or like when she was pregnant with me, because she was like, yeah, there's an episode where someone's pregnant, and I was afraid that if I kept watching, you would come out an alien.
Oh my
I'm like,
god,
what the fuck,
that's some Eraserhead shit, bro.
Yeah, and so yeah, X-Files is cool, man.
It's funny that you bring that up because as you're watching it, I would say look out for episodes where the writing credit goes to a guy named Vince Gilligan.
Okay.
Because that is the showrunner and creator of Breaking Bad.
Oh.
And he had his he was previously known for writing X-Files.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And maybe those episodes like stick out or something like that.
Damn, dude. Notice how we just brought that television thing
imagine that,
all
dude.
Together. Holy shit, that's crazy.
That's how we work here at Coworkers Enterprises.
All right, well, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think we could dive straight into our 3 film discussions.
Yeah. I think we should start off with the French Dispatch.
I think so too.
The newest Wes Anderson film. I don't know, Josh. What do you think?
What did I think? I think this movie's quite wonderful.
Okay.
I think it's just so easygoing and so like free-spirited. I really enjoyed like my time with the movie, but the thing about it is that like if you're not familiar with Wes Anderson's idiosyncratic like style of filmmaking, then this is not the movie that you should start with. Because this is Wes Anderson at his like quirkiest.
Dude, absolutely. Like when I left the theater, I was like, wow, this film is Wes Anderson at his most Wes Anderson.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of takes you aback with how like showy the movie like can get with changing its changing like aspect ratios or like changing filming styles and like going to an entirely different medium like towards the end of the movie because for most of it, about 90% of it, it's like live action, and then in the climax there is a animated chase sequence, and you're like, what the fuck? And then their explanation for it is pretty funny. They say like, oh, there's this colorful comic strip accompanying this news story, and that's how they presented it, like an animated news story. And I just think it was a really nice, easygoing film. I really like the theme of it. I think the movie's like story as a whole. So for anybody that is unaware, the movie The French Dispatch is about a news printing company called The French Dispatch, and it's run by Bill Murray and his league of writers and stuff like that, played by Frances McDormand, Tilda Swinton, and Jeffrey Wright. And for those of you who may think that name sounds familiar, if you watch What If, Jeffrey Wright voices the Watcher. Yep. He's got a great voice. He's got a killer voice.
Oh yeah.
And the movie's about these writers creating the very last issue of The French Dispatch because Bill Murray's character at the beginning of the movie passes away.
Whoa, spoilers.
I said at the beginning of the movie. Oh yeah, okay then, yeah, spoilers. My bad. But he passes away, and in Bill Murray's will, he says that the French Dispatch will close and print its last issue along with his death. So the movie is about these three people writing the final bits of the very last issue of the French Dispatch, and it's all presented in like different visual styles and like so many different stylistic choices. But I think at the heart of the movie, it's about storytelling, because journalism and like writing for papers and whatnot, it's essentially storytelling. They're like retelling like the stories that they've experienced, or they're retelling an event that happens. And I think that's presented in a way that's pretty clever in the movie. It's like some of the footage you watch is in black and white, and it's like that is the reporters reporting on the very literal and black and white events that happen. And then when the movie splashes in color, it's like the writers are taking creative liberties, and they're kind of fluffing up the story, and they're putting their own emotions injected into the story. It's kind of like the joys of like telling someone a story that happened in your life, but you find a way to like add like colorful language and like you like heighten the experience. I think that's what this movie's about, and I really like that, because I think when I tell people like stories and whatnot, that's kind of what I do, where like I kind of get like theatrical and want to like liven things up a bit, but it just adds to like the character and the humor, and I think it's all played and tied together so wonderfully.
Nice. Well, Josh, as someone who's worked with you for countless hours, I can attest to the fact that yes, you do make your stories very colorful, especially your.
I appreciate that.
Your playground story.
Oh, motherfucking.
That's for another time, though.
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time.
But honestly, like you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, like that's exactly like how I feel about it and what I noticed. And if I'm being honest, like when I walked out of the theater, I was like, like. I don't really know what to make of this movie, because I mean, like, it's like it's well made, right? It's well shot. The acting is amazing. And again, it's Wes Anderson, and it's most Wes Anderson, but it's like I don't feel like I got necessarily much out of it.
Yeah.
But then, the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it is a very charming like movie, and I really appreciate
a charming, as Wes Anderson put it, it's a charming love letter to journalism.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like when the credits rolled, and there's that part where it was like a tribute to like writers or like his favorite writers or something.
Yeah.
I was like, there it is.
Yeah.
That's what this movie's about.
It's pretty cool. And there's something else I forgot to mention: the music. There's a main French song that they use. I think it's called Aline, but it's in the bit where so Timothée Chalamet's in this movie. He's in fucking everything nowadays. But in the middle of the movie, there's a news story where Frances McDormand is reporting on a youth uprising in their city, and Timothée Chalamet is spearheading it. And there's a montage with him and his love interest, and there's this beautiful song that accompanies it, and it's so it really just like helps accentuate that like off kilter, like quirky, like I hate to use that word so many times, but like it just gives it its own identity, its own flavor, and I really like that.
This isn't probably gonna go anywhere, but it's just one thing I noticed is that whenever the journalists or the writers like recounted like their specific like stories, they would always talk to Bill Murray, right? Because he's like the editor or whatever. But I always found it interesting how like Bill Murray's character always questioned like, well, why do I need to include this? Like, why does this matter? And like I think the colorful like you said, the colorful parts of those like segmented stories, I think like that's kind of the response to that question is like, oh, this is why it matters, something like that. I don't know, the
humanistic angle, rather than just like being a robot and like spouting off information. It's like it's just these writers like taking the material they have and like putting their own perspective on it. And I agree. Also, there's a bunch of like surprise like cameos in the movie. Like
everyone's in this fucking movie
for like 5 seconds.
Everyone's in this fucking movie.
Willem Dafoe's in it. Saoirse Ronan's in it. I was like, what the hell? And I just constantly had moments where it's like, how in Marvel movies you might be like, oh, I get that reference and stuff like that. I saw like a bunch of actors being like, oh, you were in another Wes Anderson movie. But yeah, that just plays into the whole like Wes Anderson's like putting all of his cards on the table. It's just like, all these people have been there, and I just want them back for this movie.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. Yeah. So Regan, do you have anything else to add?
No, nothing really. That's
all right. Yeah. So what would you rate it?
I think right now I'm sitting at like a B+.
B+? All right. Nice.
What would you rate it?
I give it an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
Not my favorite Wes Anderson
yeah.
movie, but it was still really a great watch, and like it fits snugly in his like
filmography.
In his filmography.
Nice.
So for our second movie discussion, Regan and I watched the new Edgar Wright movie Last Night in Soho. Now, take it away, Regan. What'd you think about Last Night in Soho?
You know, Josh, I saw your little review that you put up on your Instagram story. And it was like Malignant meets Promising Young Woman.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? Yeah, it is. It is Malignant meets Promising Young Woman.
I'm glad you saw the similarities.
I don't mean to say that to sort of degrade it. I mean,
to discredit it.
Yeah, to discredit it. Yeah, I mean, like I still found enjoyment out of it. Granted, I haven't seen much Edgar Wright movies. I've only seen Baby Driver. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I enjoyed it. I think Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy really like make the movie for me.
Sure.
They really
Every
made the movie
time
for me.
Anya Taylor-Joy was on screen, I was fucking hooting and hollering, man.
This dude was jumping out of his seat.
I was like, there she is.
Nice. But yeah, I mean, it's stylish.
It is.
You know, I'll give it that. Like in terms of like the giallo-ness, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, especially certain shots and like the ending, especially.
Oh yeah.
That's when you could really feel the influences coming through.
Oh,
He
yeah.
wears it on his sleeve.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I think on top of all that, I don't think it's trying to say anything entirely new, perhaps. I mean, it's saying something important, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
About, you know, women and like women and how they're kind of perceived and used as like by you know, our society and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, like I know this film has a lot of criticism like towards it, but I don't know. I don't really see why it's getting all this, you know, dislikes, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. I got you. No problem.
But I mean, I think overall, like I enjoyed the film. There's definitely parts where it's like, okay, especially like the twist.
Yeah, that
I use air quotes for twist. I'm like, huh. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't think it's as effective as it could have been.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but I mean that's just one instance. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
So I would go on record to say that Edgar Wright is probably one of my favorite directors, and I consider 3 of his movies like some of my favorite movies ever made. Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I actually put 4. I consider Baby Driver to be like an editing masterpiece.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with producing so many good things is that when something below the bar comes out, I think it sticks out like crazy. And I know for this movie specifically, he worked with this cinematographer he's a Korean cinematographer. His name's Chung Chung-hoon, and he was a part of he was a cinematographer for my favorite Korean movie, The Handmaiden. And I could definitely tell that this movie like has a lot more like long shots and like these like wider angle like scenes and whatnot. But I think for a movie for this this subject and like its influences, I think for it to go above and beyond and really work in my mind, it had to get really like crazy.
Yeah.
I said it feels like Malignant, and I was trying to figure out in my head why Malignant like works for me and why this movie kind of didn't. I think it's because Malignant is like so stupid.
Yeah, it embraces
like so ridiculous.
Yeah, it embraces camp.
It embraces its non-serious nature.
Yeah.
Full stop. Like it just goes crazy with it. And in this movie, it kind of like bounces between like it wants to stay like this like modern movie that could be like consumed like nowadays and not alienate itself, and dipping its toes in giallo, and it kind of doesn't like focus on one or the other, and it leaves its like horror elements like on the wayside. I thought like its attempts at horror, like with the ghosts, like the apparitions and whatnot, it just kind of came down to like a couple of jump scares and whatnot, and I wasn't really like scared. So I was like, oh, okay. If anything, I think the first act and the last act have the most like Edgar Wright isms like that I could pinpoint, especially when Thomas E. McKenzie first has her like episode of like being Anya Taylor-Joy, and like the dance scene when they're constantly like cutting from like Anya Taylor-Joy, Thomas E. McKenzie, and then Thomas E. McKenzie's can be seen in reflections like following them and whatnot. I thought that stuff was like, oh, like that's what I'm looking for. That stuff's hella cool.
Oh yeah, it was sick.
But I just think its foundation, like what it stands on, I think it's kind of underwritten. Like there's an aspect of mental illness. There's like the stuff about Thomas E. McKenzie living like another life and whatnot, and it's like, oh, she's just dreaming. But like that, those things start like affecting her real life and whatnot, like the hickey and whatnot. So some of it kind of just feels muddled and underwritten, and the screenplay is kind of like, it just feels a bit generic, you know? I would think that the energetic stylizations of Edgar Wright movies, like the really flashy editing, and the visual like jokes and stuff like that. I get that this isn't like a comedy movie, but I thought that like the really fast editing and like how stylish it is, it could really complement like a horror movie really effectively. But I just think the underwritten nature of the screenplay and some questionable like decisions that happen really kind of like dragged like my enjoyment of the movie. I mean, regardless of whether or not my favorite actress Anya Taylor-Joy is in it.
I think they're okay. So I'm gonna get into some spoilers.
Yeah, let's get into some spoilers.
Then. So in the beginning of the movie, it's kind of set up that Thomas and Mackenzie can see ghosts or see apparitions. I don't know. I don't know if it was as effective as it could have been, because they kind of just like gloss over it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I feel like they try to bring it back and like make it come into play, but then it's like, I don't know, because then there's this whole time that passes where like they don't even like mention it.
Yeah, it's like in the middle. Yeah. They bring it up once when she goes to the police officers.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, oh, surprise, like this was a part of the movie. And at that point I had forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Like,
me too. Me too. I'd forgotten about it. I don't know. I think that's one thing that stuck out to me. But I think touching back on like her first like dream or whatever she had going back to the 60s, I was like, this is cool. Like this is sick. Like her walking into that club or whatever, and them switching like the actresses and whatnot. The fact, and they did that practically. Like they did that, I think, in a one take, but they just had Thomas and Mackenzie and like Anya Taylor-Joy switching. And I thought, okay, like that's cool. Like I fuck with that. But yeah, I agree. It's like it kind of drags a bit until it gets, you know, like
back to being crazy.
Back to being crazy, yeah.
A total bloodbath at the end. I was like, when it got to that part, okay, since we're in spoiler territory, when it got to the climax and Homeboy got stabbed and hella blood came out, I was like, oh, what the fuck? That came out of nowhere. But yeah, that scene at the end, I was like, it's like I liked it for its flashiness. I just wish that the foundation was more, you know, stable.
Yeah, absolutely.
My analogy for this movie is like a cake where the icing is like really decorative. It's really nice. It probably tastes really good too, but the cake is really dry.
Right.
That's probably like the most concise dumb analogy I could come up for this.
No, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I'm feeling about the movie. Regan, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I don't know really. I think I would say that it was probably one of my most anticipated films of the year. I don't want to say I was disappointed because I still found some enjoyment out of it. But I think, you know, honestly, compared to like some of the other films I've seen this year, it's like, ooh,
it kind of lacks.
Yeah, I don't think it meets that bar. You know what I mean?
I feel it.
But yeah, Josh, what would you rate it?
Sadly, I gave it a 5.
Oh.
5 out of 10.
Oh.
It was, looking back on my movies, like Regan said, it was one of his most anticipated. This was definitely up there with one of my most anticipated movies, and I felt kind of burned by it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm at a B or a B minus right now.
All right.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, second movie done. Let's hit you with an ad break.
So if you're like me and Josh and you want to make your own podcast, why not use Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. So there are certain tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere that podcasts can be listened to. On top of that, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's free. So, what are you guys waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
And we are back with our third and final discussion. The newest Marvel join. And I'm pretty sure Marvel wants us to say this, directed by Academy winner Chloe Zhao, Eternals.
Yep.
Regan, what'd you think of Eternals?
I'm going to take the reins on this one. One. So, I honestly, I've been thinking about this for like the past couple of days. Like, I think I'm sitting for Eternals. I'm in between saying I liked it and it's fine. Like, I am right in between of it, because there are some aspects where I'm like, yo, I really like what they're trying to do, but then like thinking about the overall like thing, the overall film, it's like like it's serviceable, to me at least.
So it's like the expression like greater than the sum of its parts. It's like you could pick out individualistic things, but like as the whole, it's different. Okay.
And I'm sure everyone was freaking out about the Rotten Tomato score. And I'd be remiss to say that I wasn't either. I was like, that's interesting, considering that, Chloe Zhao was attached to this film, and Chloe Zhao is very much an auteur of our time.
Yeah, the consistent Marvel pedigree, Marvel's pedigree of consistency when it comes to its movies. So
that too.
This really sticks out when you look at it.
But I think what I will say is that I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's the worst movie of the year. I don't think it's the worst movie Marvel's ever made.
We've seen worse.
Yeah, we've definitely seen worse. But I don't know. Like, I understand why people are put off by this film. And I'm just gonna get into it. I think I'm gonna start off with like the cons first.
Okay. Also, Regan, I want to ask, will we be getting into spoilers?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Yeah,
okay.
I will. But I'm gonna start with the cons first, because I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and end
it on that.
Yeah, end it on like a negative note. But I'm gonna start off. It's long. It is a long fucking film, which is weird to say because I think both of us, we kind of watch long movies a lot.
A lot? Yeah. And we don't mind
it. I saw No Time to Die, which was 2 hours and 46 minutes. I saw Dune, which was almost the same runtime as this.
Yeah.
But for some reason, this just felt really long. And I feel like it would have benefited maybe being a shorter film, maybe being like what Dune is doing, like splitting it into 2 parts.
My friend recommended that.
Yeah.
And he said that he thinks it would have been a better idea to tackle such a large cast of characters in 2 films.
Yeah.
And I think that is
but I think I'm gonna say that for my thoughts later. Yeah. But right now the cons. So yeah, it's a bit long, and I think that's what puts off a lot of people, is that it's long. And there is a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue, a lot of exposition. And I don't think regular moviegoers who go see a superhero film necessarily, they don't want to see that technically.
Yeah.
I remember I was having a conversation with one of our coworkers about like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, and he was like, yeah, man, like I don't like all that sitcom stuff. I don't like all that like debates and talking in Falcon and Winter Soldier, because when I see a superhero film, I want to see them fight. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, interesting. I mean, I guess that's what they are essentially, right? That's what regular moviegoers want to go see. But yeah, I mean, moving on, like, I think one thing that I didn't necessarily like really just get into was the villain, like the deviants. It's I don't know. It's weird. It's like so Crow being the main deviant, the one that like sucks the power from the Eternals.
Yep.
Towards the end. Okay, so again, we're gonna get into spoilers, but towards the end. So basically, the whole reason why the deviants were made was because the Celestials want life to grow and to be abundant.
They want to cultivate intelligent life on planets.
They want to cultivate intelligent life. And that can't happen because these humans are being hunted down by these predators throughout like millennia. And so to combat that, they bring in the deviants to get rid of those predators. But the deviants kind of got carried away, and they took the place of those predators, killing humans, which in turn made the Celestials make the Eternals. So Crow, towards the end, when he's fighting Angelina Jolie, he brings up a good idea, like an interesting idea. Like we are like pawns. We are being pawns to these hypocrites, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. That's a good idea. He dies, and it's like, okay. And like when he dies, it's like I don't feel anything because I didn't care for this villain.
Yeah.
I didn't care for any of the deviants.
And I thought, okay, so going off of that, I thought it was funny how towards like the end of the movie, Crow just kind of walks out of the water and he wins the fight.
Yeah, he just kind of walks. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay. What else? Again, touching back on like the good idea part, right? Kingo, which to me is one of the highlights of the film, played by Kumail Nanjiani.
My fucking boy.
Kingo, he also brings up a great idea. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, like if we do this, we're gonna be going against like what we're told to do. We're preventing what the Celestials want, these like higher beings, what they want. Mm-hmm. And then he just dips out.
It's like I think his point that he brings up is like a nice middle ground.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Having, two sides.
Yeah, two like binaries. Yeah.
Do we follow what the Celestials want, or do we do what we think is best for us and like the people that we love?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think him being a middle ground, it kind of just adds like another dynamic of like, oh, it's like it's not a completely black and white, decision.
But the thing is, it doesn't go anywhere because he
does not go anywhere.
He pieces out.
He pieces the fuck out until the end.
It's weird because he was advertised and touted as a warrior, someone who likes to fight. And for someone who likes to fight, he pieces out. Now, to be fair, he kind of gives his own reasoning, like, I don't want to fight you guys, and I don't want to fight Icarus, I don't want to fight the Celestials, so I'm just going to leave. And it's like, okay, I guess, do what you want. And then lastly, the one thing I didn't like, Sprite loves Icarus. Huh? Where did that come from? Where did that come from?
I'm glad you're on the same page with me on this.
I literally, when I was in the theater, I was like, I mean, obviously, like, you guys can see my face, but Josh can see it. I was dumbfounded. I was like,
yeah. Where the fuck did they pull that out of their ass? Yeah.
Like, it wasn't set up in any way. There's no hint as to where Sprite would maybe love Icarus or have feelings for him. But it's just thrown out there by Kingo.
And I'm like, analogy about
Peter Pan and Tinkerbell or whatever the fuck.
What?
And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make her motivation to betray the Eternals any like more
stronger.
Yeah, stronger.
Yeah, like it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere. I don't know. Those are the only cons that are glaring to me. And I guess right now I want to move to all like things that I liked, things that I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the fact that the film was about these Celestials, these like android beings that are made from these gods and that are sent down to make humanity flourish. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of them falling in love with humanity and seeing these are good people. Like they can do wrong, they're flawed, mm-hmm. but they have what it takes to survive and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And I like the idea of them also becoming humans, not just living with the humans, but becoming understanding what it means to be human, right? Because I think Icarus is an example of him being I'm this staunch loyalist that needs to follow what the Celestials want. Mm-hmm. And I can't be flawed because I can fly and I can shoot lasers out of my eyes or whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah.
But, seeing all the different Eternals kind of like Phastos, he has a husband and a son. Yep. And then Cersei has a relationship with Dane Whitman, and seeing them love and understand these humans, I was like, okay, I like that. I like that idea. It kind of And then I guess bouncing off of that idea, it's the scene that I really liked was the scene in I can't pronounce it. It's the Aztec City.
Okay.
I really like that scene because it kind of speaks to the idea of with great power comes great responsibility, right? Like if we have these great powers, if we have this thing that we can do to stop this, why can't we? Because obviously it's wrong. Like, and I think Druig, which is another highlight of the film.
Yep, another one of my boys, Barry Keoghan.
Druig, he brings up that idea. It's like all these people are dying, and we're just up here, and we're just gonna let it happen. And then that's when the Eternals kind of break off.
Yep.
You know. And I like that idea. It's like, yeah, you guys are fucking powerful as fuck. Like, why can't you guys step in?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, like the reason why is because, well, they can't because of the Celestials. They don't want them to get involved. But I like that idea, right? And it kind of speaks to like all the other heroes in this world. It's like, and it kind of speaks to us, right? Like as a society, if we have the means of standing up for what we believe in or like fighting, you know, the good fight, like why can't we, right? And then in terms of characters, the ones I really liked were like Makari, Druig, Kingo, and Thena. I think Makari more so just for the powers. I thought that was cool. Like all the
I think it was a cool
scenes.
Showcase of like the speedster archetype.
Like
you
know? Like all of her speedster scenes were great. And Lauren Ridloff she's just amazing. I love her. She's great. Our first deaf superhero, and it's awesome. Druig, I think just for like the ideas he brings up and just being Barry Keoghan.
Yeah, he brings like a weird aloof nature to things, and like just the way he talks. It's having. I'm pretty familiar with like his like filmography and stuff like that. He's known to play like weirdos or like really like thoughtful individuals. Mm-hmm. So I think Druig was a good fit for him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kingo, of course, like I said, Kingo is the highlight.
Bollywood star.
The highlight of this film. Him and his roadie.
Oh, that guy,
dude, it's so good
with the 20 cameras.
Yeah, so oh fucking good, dude. I love Kingo. I mean, he's funny. And yeah, he's just great.
Do you think it's crazy that Kumail Nanjiani got absolutely shredded for this movie, and they only showed his arms? Brother, take off that shirt.
Yeah.
Where the money shot?
Yeah, I guess I get
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm just poking some.
And Thena, Angelina Jolie is Thena. I was like, I fuck with it. Like, I mean, it's Angelina Jolie. Like I fuck with it. You know what I mean? What else? You know, I think I touched upon it before. This movie has a lot of talky, and not a lot of bang bang boom boom. But for the bang bang boom boom, I think Makari and Thena have the best action. And I think that leads me into like this action scene that happens. So they're in Babylon, right? Or in Mesopotamia, and they're trying to stop this deviant from attacking the Mesopotamians, right? And that scene I enjoyed only because it's what I wish the Avengers movies would do, and that's ganging up on one villain. Right, and just unloading on it.
Yeah.
Because you have like Kingo and Icarus and Thena and Makari and Gilgamesh, and they're just like going ham on this fucking villain. And I'm like, yo, that's sick. You know, because they all have their time to showcase their powers, but also it's like they're working together as a team to take down a villain. And that's one thing that I wish like the Avengers movies would do, rather than like sending in all these fucking like aliens and whatnot, which is still cool, but like to see them maybe just go against one villain. Mm-hmm. And see them like, oh my god, like even they can't like take them down, right? It's cool. I thought it was cool. And the Celestials.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed. When the Celestial first like popped up, I was like, holy
damn, that guy big as
fuck. This guy is huge.
That's a big horse.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I only wish that I saw this in IMAX because I would want to see this like this towering thing, right? And I saw your review on Letterboxd on it, and how you said like, the changing aspect ratios kind of reminded you of Michael Bay and how he did it in Transformers. I don't know. For me, I thought it was effective in here because it like the way Michael Bay does it, he just does it just to do it. Like, he doesn't care. But I think for this film, I think the way Chloe Zhao did it, I think is just to show like the scale and the size of the Celestials and to show that they are like bigger than like anything that we can imagine, like bigger than a planet almost. I really like that, and I think it's it's a fun fact. Chloe Zhao actually hit up Denis Villeneuve, and she was like, and Denis Villeneuve gave her like a screening of Dune, just to see how like he played around with like IMAX and like all that stuff. And I thought that was interesting because she doesn't have any experience with IMAX.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up wanting to see it in IMAX because I did see it in IMAX.
Oh, really?
Like it was a pretty like big experience. Yeah, like it was cool. Like the Celestial stuff was pretty awesome. Like just how large they were.
Yeah.
That was and like their voice work and like whatever modulation and modifications they did on whoever the voice actor is. I thought that was pretty awesome to make them feel very alien.
Yeah.
Now for a quick aside about the aspect ratio thing, the only times where I found it kind of troublesome to watch is when the aspect ratio changes multiple times within the same sequence. It's like the same action scene where it goes from like landscape wide with black bars, it's letterboxed, and then within that same section when they cut to them fighting the deviant, it like changes, and then there's like a lighting change too, and like the way like the picture looks, like the picture quality, there's a change to it, and like it starts to like flicker, like it starts to kind of like overlap each other. That's when I feel like it became intrusive a little bit. But go on, Regan.
Yeah. What else? Oh, I really enjoyed the relationship between like Thena and Gilgamesh.
Boy Don Lee.
Yeah, Don fucking Lee. I think he was great too as Gilgamesh. But that relationship between them, like they're not lovers, but you can tell that like they care about each other, and I really enjoyed that aspect. I think a lot of their relationships in general, like in this film, I really enjoyed, like Cersei and Dane. Cersei and Icarus, I think it's okay. I had wished that they kind of got into more of like, why Icarus left in a way. I mean, like I get it.
You don't vibe with Marvel's first sex scene?
Oh Jesus, dude! when that sex scene happened, my whole theater went. They all collectively gasped.
Bro, when that scene happened, I was watching the screen, and under my breath, I went, "Oh my god!" And then next to me, one seat away from me, was this little kid. He couldn't have been no more than 8 years old. And I just looked at him, and I was like, "You didn't sign up for this kid, did you?" And I was like,
I mean,
oh my
you
god.
know what? Hey, like, Chloe Zhao, I appreciate you.
If they want to do that,
yeah, I appreciate you for swinging at the fences. Like,
Yep.
But damn, I'm like, but yeah, the relationships I really enjoyed, especially Thena and Gilgamesh. I really enjoyed that. I think, okay, I'm probably gonna be in the 1% that thinks this, but I think the jokes in this film are actually funny, rather than like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where I feel like a lot of the jokes there are very throwaway. I actually got my theater actually got a real laugh out of like the jokes that like Kingo would make, or like his like roadie, like the jokes he would make. I really got a kick out of them. I really enjoyed it. What else? The costumes. Now, a lot of Marvel fans and a lot of people were like making fun of the costumes, saying, "Oh, they're very basic. Like they look weird. Like they're not nice or anything." And I would have to disagree. I think the costumes are really nice, like really, really beautiful. Like, and they stand out because a lot of the costumes that we get in the MCU, they're very tactical. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like they're very like militarized. They're very like government issued. But I think these costumes that the Eternals wear, they're very like regal.
They can get a bit more extravagant because they're like immortal beings who don't really need to worry about protection.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they can just wear like what they consider to be basic clothing for them.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's just cool.
Yeah, and I think just like the way it's shot too, I just think they're really, really nice costumes and they like stand out. What else? And I think this film, compared to all the other MCU films, is visually just stronger.
Yeah.
Like visually, I think it's just different, and it has that Chloe Zhao touch to it, compared to literally all the other MCU.
They shot on location.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah. What else? Oh, and representation. Of course, it's great.
Yeah, one of the strongest aspects of this movie.
You know, I always love good representation. You know, we have our first deaf superhero, and we're gonna get our second one in Hawkeye.
We have a LGBTQ
Yes.
superhero in scenes that cannot be edited for to adhere to a social thing in other countries. Like they are front and center and their interactions are actually important.
Yeah, and
so
I
it's
fuck with that so hard.
So they cannot throw it away. And the fact that they do believe in the representation and they want to show it off, that is mad props.
That is a plus. Yeah. Yeah, man, representation, it's great. I love it. And it doesn't treat it where it's like, hey, look at us, we're doing something, important, blah blah blah. Yep. It's just these are the characters.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. Them. Yeah, take it or leave it. And I guess now we're gonna go into more of my thoughts, just some extra thoughts I have of this film. I appreciate Marvel for taking a big swing at something that is so different, that is so out there compared to a traditional Marvel film. I use it air quotes. I appreciate Feige and everyone really stepping out of what they're doing. Now whether or not they stuck the landing, that's up to you. But I think for the most part they did a good job. And I think one thing that I felt when I got out of this film was it is trying to do something similar to what Dune is doing, where it's throwing a lot of stuff at you, a lot of mythology, a lot of lore, and you kind of just have to sit with it. You kind of have to sit with the atmosphere. You have to sit with the story. And I think that's what kind of makes it long. I think that's what kind of makes it kind of pushes people away from seeing it or enjoying it.
The density.
Yeah, because it's just a lot of information that it gives you, and it's you I don't know. It could get a little too much to the regular moviegoer, which again I understand. What else? And I think one thing that bogs it down in a way is that it tries to juggle 10 different characters.
The cast is so fucking big.
The cast is big, it's stacked, and it's when you have a cast this big, especially when they're new characters, especially when it's a new
unfamiliar territory they're going to tread into.
That you're trying to introduce, you kind of have to touch upon all these different arcs and all these different stories and all these different personalities, and in doing so, you kind of push away some characters.
Yeah.
Right? For example, Makari. She only really comes in her spotlight really only comes out towards the last the
tail end.
45 minutes.
Yep.
And I mean don't get me wrong, it was sick, all her scenes were sick, but yeah, it's some characters got some limelight more so than others.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess those are really my thoughts on Eternals. Far from being a perfect movie, but far from being a horrible movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think where I'm sitting at right now is that this film, if I were to rank it with all the other MCU films, it's not in my bottom 10. It's not in my top 10.
Man, that's crazy. There's so many Marvel movies you can make a bottom and top 10.
It is right in the middle. There were some parts I really, really loved about it, but there were just some aspects of it where it just kind of took me away. And I'm just gonna give my rating. I think right now for my rating, I'm sitting at a B or a B minus. Yeah, I don't know, Josh. Do you have any other thoughts?
Okay, I guess the overall thought that I have about the movie is that I just don't know how badly I might Russell, if I might catch some heat for saying that I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
But I feel like Regan touched on the runtime, and this is a movie that you have to plan your whole day around. It's it's that long. It's pretty out there. I'm glad that they got Chloe Zhao. They wanted to do something different and stray away from their typical Marvel formula, but I think it suffers from the fact I think somehow it suffers from that runtime, because not only does it feel long, but like it also doesn't have enough time to do everything that it wants to do.
Yeah.
And we pitched the idea of splitting this into 2 movies, and I think that would have been a great idea to like really give time to like maybe focus on 1 to 2 Eternals like solely, and then like make another movie where like everybody like comes together, and like, or like at the end of the first movie they might come together, and then you could like start to like flesh out the other characters in like a subsequent movie. But I just think that like, because of wanting to jam pack the movie with so much information, aspects of it feel very underwritten and like half baked. Like me and Regan talked about like the whole Sprite thing and the whole romance like coming out of nowhere. That's one thing that plagues this movie, in my opinion, is that it does like a movie storytelling no. It's being told how I'm supposed to feel as I'm watching it. It's like rather than like having the characters interact and for me to like put the pieces together and figure out how the characters like mentalities are, their headspaces, and like putting them together and seeing how their dynamics really like play off of each other, I'm kind of just hand fed like that information, and it leaves me feeling like empty, because I'm like, oh, I'm just told that. Like, am I really supposed to care? Like, I didn't feel like that's the moments, certain moments in this movie were really earned. Regan talked about the villain. It's like whatever his presence was, he kind of just like comes in towards the ending, and just to like have a big Marvel blowout, a big CGI blowout. And I think the whole Icarus thing is like, it's so strange, like that, like the twist, and wanting to like going against like the family of the Eternals, and like having that whole dynamic. I feel like it just, all the ideas just need more time to be fleshed out. I think it's just kind of like rushing through to like catch people up on like the Eternals history, and like this repetitive nature that you have in the movie. I think that's another thing that makes the movie feel long, is that like the sequence of events that transpire, it kind of repeats the cycle of like meeting an Eternal, flashback, fight scene, meeting an Eternal, flashback, fight scene, and then like it kind of just does that on loop for a majority of the movie. And like, because it does that, it bogs down the talkie bits, which I think is the more interesting stuff, because having dialogue between characters can like flesh them out, and you can have them actually interacting with each other, and maybe not spoon feed expository dialogue like all the time to like plug in the gaps in like the plot and whatnot. And I think I don't know if I'm the only person that found this correlation between this movie and another movie, but this movie reminded me eerily of Blade Runner.
Oh, really?
Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. The ideas of human empathy, being like, of learning what it means to be human, because the Eternals are essentially replicants. And like the villain, you mentioned like the ideas of like, could you repeat it again? Like what the last thing the Crow says to Angelina Jolie, like the interesting idea.
Yeah, it's the idea that we're being pawns to like these greater beings, and we're just more of the same.
When Crow was talking about that, I thought of Rutger Hauer's character from the first Blade Runner, and I was like, that's essentially what he's going for. And like there's like all this other stuff. Cersei, Gemma Chan's character, made me think of Ryan Gosling's character from 2049, and like how they learn to like break away from like their duties and what it is that they're made to do, and do what it is that like they feel is right, because that's the most human thing you could do, is to do what you think is right. And it's like, it's taking these ideas, but like it, in my opinion, because of like all this other information that's stacked on top of it, it lacks the nuance that I think is needed for that type of story. I think that like Eternals as a whole just needed more time in the oven. I don't think it needed 4 writers also. I saw the writing credits. I was like, that's a lot of people. And like you could tell that like the movie kind of like bounces like so frequently across like different things that it needs to tackle because there's a lot of moving pieces. It's ambitious, but like maybe this is just like Marvel's first stumble before really falling into the rhythm of making a movie like this. And you know, they can only get better from here. So hopefully like that's what happens. And what else did I want to talk about? I thought I'm going to bring up Icarus one more time. So his name is Icarus. If anybody is unfamiliar with that old story of how Icarus made wings and flew too close to the sun, they try to do that in this movie, but I feel like any cleverness is kind of lost in the wayside when Icarus flies directly into the sun. And I was like, I'm sorry, but like I audibly laughed at that part, and like my theater was quiet, and I felt bad. But yeah, it's definitely not one of Marvel's like strongest outings. There's definitely some gripes I have with it. But yeah, it's far from just like being terrible. Like I don't consider this to be like a really bad movie because like I've seen a lot worse. So I just think there's just a lot more glaring things than there are enjoyable things. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm sitting with this movie. And as for my rating, I gave it a 4 out of 10.
Is that your lowest of the year?
No, I've given a movie a 1.
Oh shit.
So see, it's like for people out there, I've given a lot of movies like 1s and 2s like throughout my lifetime. I've seen a lot worse. Like it just tries to do too much. I guess is what I'm getting at.
I understand that. And it's like I understand all the criticisms that it's getting. I get that, but the hate that it's getting.
That's unwarranted.
Yeah, I don't fuck with that shit.
You could criticize something without devolving into just vitriolic comments about like really like extraneous things, outside things, like people dog on it for like representation and whatnot.
Yeah,
it's
fuck
like
that.
For being woke.
Yeah,
it's like
that.
No, I have problems with the writing and some filmmaking stuff. It's like it has nothing to do with any political agenda. I fucking hate it when people like will reduce criticism to hate like that. Like don't do that.
But yeah, that's my Harry Styles is in it. I forgot to say.
Fuck.
Yeah, Harry Styles is in it. And then Dane Whitman gets the ebony blade at the end, and Mahershala Ali has a little voice thing. And he did confirm himself that he did it. Chloe Zhao confirmed that it was Blade.
Oh hell yeah!
So yeah. That was our thoughts on Eternals. I would say honestly, go out to see it. I mean like, form your own opinion on it. Don't let a Rotten Tomato score or a reviewer tell you like what to think. Yeah, what to think of this film. You know, come up with your own thoughts. Obviously. But I would say be patient with it. You know, don't go into think it's gonna be Avengers Endgame. Just be patient with it, and you know, go check out the film. Support Chloe Zhao. Support, you know, the actors involved and whatnot.
Yeah, most definitely. Don't let silly numbers that I'm spouting off or like a letter grade that Regan might give out to like warrant like how you feel about a movie. Like don't attach yourself too strongly to those things, because Regan and I are big supporters of seeing it for yourself and forming your own opinion. So yeah, regardless of what a silly website says, what numbers are thrown out, it's like what matters is what you think of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the episode. It. Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Please go see these movies: French Dispatch, Last Night in Soho, Eternals. If you guys like this episode, let us know what you think. Give us a follow on Instagram at coworkers.podcast. And if you guys didn't know yet, Josh and I made a short film. It's out on our YouTube channel. Go check it out. Link is in our bio on our Instagram. And I'm Regan.
And I'm Josh.
Later, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.